what if you had a feeling that you felt was from God? So obviously in this whole conversation, we're talking about the heart being deceiving, your mind, will, and emotions, your feelings all over the place. So what if you get a feeling that you feel is from God? How does God communicate with us? Well, we know he communicates to us through his word. We know he has other ways of doing such through things like visions, dreams, right? He has other capacities through other people, using platforms like this, right? To speak to us of his word, his wisdom, those kinds of things. So I think that's always important. Analyze, how does God speak? Secondly, I will also say, and I agree with Keyshawn here, he says, I do not believe God is out here speaking in that manner. You have people that either pull you up or keep you down. So I'll say this, I'll agree with this portion, that I don't believe God is out here speaking in that manner. I don't think God is always speaking. Okay. I think that's something that we have to very much pay attention to. And we even see it in scripture. There was a 400-year period between the end of the Old Testament and when Matthew was, the Jesus's ministry and his birth, right? There was a 400-year period where God was quiet. Nothing crazy was going on, right? No miracles, no anything. Okay. So God isn't always speaking. So when we talk about analyzing our feelings and whether or not we have a feeling that's from God, God has a way of confirming a lot of the things that we feel or that we think we're feeling that are coming from him. He has a way of confirming whether what we're hearing is from him. He has a way of confirming a lot of this stuff. So I think a better question would be, how do we analyze if what we're feeling is from God? And I think one of the best ways we can do that to know if we're hearing from God or not is, how much are we spending time in his word? How much are we spending time in his presence? How much time are we giving to seeking his wisdom, to seeking this clarity, to seeking all of this information that he's really trying to pour into us, not just so we know it, but that's so we have the capacity and expansion to live it. So I really do believe that's the first start. You just have to, you have to be mindful of what you're feeling. Cause I think you can, I'll be honest, right? I've had a lot of moments where I thought God was speaking to me, or I've had moments where I thought the feeling I was getting was coming from God. And then came a lot of other confirmations that led me to know, no, that was just me. 1000% that was just me. That wasn't God. That was me. That was me trying to either pretend I was being God in my own thoughts, or that was just me trying to depend heavily on my emotions and trying to give every reason of justification as to why my emotions are right and what God is really trying to get me to do is wrong. So how was I able to combat that? Going back to his word and remaining in a space of prayer, but also seeking wise counsel. Right. I think seeking wise counsel and wise counselors around us is important too. You have to be able to, one thing that you'll learn as that you'll continue to learn, and I hope that you're getting as being a believer, is that you can't do this life alone. So you're going to need people who are spiritually mature and even more mature than you to be able to come to when you experience moments like that and to see, hey, does this make sense? Do you think God would say this? Or, do you does this make sense to you? Should I feel this? Am I in the right to feel this? Does this feeling make sense? All those kinds of things. Because hear me when I say this, man. And this is important. This is why everything has to come back to the word, because there are a lot of people, and I'm hope that you're hip to a lot of what's going on. Maybe not necessarily in Christian culture, but just in culture in general. There are a lot of people who are trying to put God on a lot of things that are ungodly. I'm not so sure if you guys heard of community. Okay. When you think of people who are proclaiming, things like Jesus is, or Jesus is okay with such things, right? He supports and condones such things. Okay. These are all types of people that are placing their feelings above God or trying to attribute God to their feelings. So though, if you went and asked those people, they would probably tell you, yeah, God told me that. God told me that. I'm more confident. I'm so confident God told me that. I'm so confident that God placed this in my heart. But if I go to scripture, it's not going to be the same thing, right? That's not going to be the same thing. So we have to be able to come to scripture to understand, one, is this feeling even accurate? Is this thought even accurate? And then we proceed to move forward and, hey, okay, wise counsel, asking others around who are just as spiritually mature, those kinds of things to really get an understanding on it. So that would be my 2 cents. There are party people. Listen, I'm just popping in real quick to let you know that I've got a new podcast I'm whipping up in the kitchen called The Bridge Podcast. I'm part of it with co-host Pastor Demetrius Colbert, who you've seen on this channel quite a few times. And we're here having real, raw, and relevant conversations.
We are going to say what you say. So sometimes it might be a little PG-13 because we're going to say what you say, like clapping cheeks, like they turned me on to that. Clapping cheeks. I was like, what? I was like, what?
Yeah. They're talking loud of their masturbation experiences, their experiences, what they're currently doing when they get home at night, who's doing what, how many times, how did it feel, sore, all that good stuff. I mean, they're getting in it.
Now, before you get to thinking, no, you don't gotta be a Christian to check out this podcast, because at the end of the day, that we are all humans having life experiences, have questions, serious topics, serious concerns that we all would love to be helped with and get navigation with. And so this is where we come in, looking to give some insight from my perspective and his, that we can come together, share some wisdom that I think will be beneficial for you and the journey of life you're on.
The whole point of the bridge, again, is for you to be able to get on it and not criticize the bridge, but to use the bridge and say, I need to walk across on this side and hear what needs to be said. And I need to walk across on that side and hear what needs to be said.
So don't forget to check us out. Link is in the description, and I can't wait to see you there. So there are confirmations that you think you are from God also /2. What do you mean? Are you saying there are confirmations that you think are...
Maybe God can do maybe some supernatural things or coincidence, like Gideon, the fleece type deal?
I mean, that's not past his realm either. God can perform miracles and things like that. I would just be slow to always point somebody in that direction of expecting that. Because even though we see, and if that is what you're saying, Justin, please clarify if that's not what you're saying. If that is what you're saying, we also have to pay attention to how often miracles took place in scripture. It wasn't an everyday thing. It wasn't like people were waking up every day and a new miracle was happening. So I think that there's a different way to kind of view that and approach that. So I would be, of course, that doesn't surpass God's power, that God can do that 1000%, still can. I just think there are too many Christians who are expecting a miracle every day, and God's giving you and equipping you with the tools necessary to move forward in what you already have. But because you're just expecting God to bust the sky open and drop you a gift box with your name on it and literally give you everything, you miss it. And so I would, if that is what you're saying, I'd be cautious of that too. He might be asking, how would he know that a confirmation of a feeling is from God if he couldn't tell the feeling was from God already? Like I said, I think scripture. Like I said, I think we have to get to a space where we are understanding scripture for what it says in the context of it. And then again, that goes back to community. Like if you so for instance, I'll give an applicable example. I think it'd be 2 years this fall. So about a year and some change ago. Okay. I went through a period where I was deciding whether or not to stay in school, talking to Dion, talking to Demetrius, talking to my family. I'm like, man, I'm not really too sure if I need to stay in school. I kind of learned okay, I got to stay for another year and a half. I really don't want to do that. I am a believer that I can learn a lot of this stuff outside of the classroom without spending money. Of course, money isn't really coming out of my pocket, right? But nonetheless, that's kind of the conversation in the space that was happening. And so I have a tendency, okay, and I'll be transparent here. In some situations, I have a tendency to over spiritualize and stay in my prayer closet for weeks at a time or anything like that, trying to figure out what's going on. And some of that I've learned was just because there were some things I thought was such a detrimental decision that I was afraid to make a decision. Okay. And so I was trying to really weigh out everything I could before doing so. There were days, it was kind of like a back and forth thing, man. I was sharing with PD, sharing with Dion thoughts, just hearing things from them, going back and talking to my parents, because they're the ones I really have to go through and share thoughts on to make a decision about. And there were times where I felt, you know, I think God is really telling me to leave, right? I really believe God is telling me to leave. I remember vividly saying things like that. I felt it. It was something that I thought was strong. I would say things like, man, I just heard, like, I'm having questions in my mind, and I'm like, man, I hear a whisper. Like, he's like, you know, you've already done everything you need to accomplish there, right? And so I would go and in my explanation of trying to tell my parents, hey, this is why I'm leaving, I would share that. But then I would kind of come back and I'd be like, well, wait, is that really what God told me? I don't really know. Right. And going back and forth into saying one thing and saying another. God told me this, God told me that. Maybe God didn't tell me this. Maybe God didn't tell me that. Right. And so going back and forth on that, one thing I do know scripture says is God is not the spirit of confusion. Right. And so it's not that staying in school or leaving school was evil, sinful, or anything like that. This was just a decision that I was trying to make. And I was trying to decipher if whether or not this was the right or best decision to make. And I was continuously saying that I had feelings that God was telling me to go in one direction. And ultimately, it was a direction that I wanted to go in. Right. And so it took a lot of me getting around otherwise counsel that helped me decipher with wisdom and applicable wisdom to be able to say, okay, is this really a decision that I should make? And I was in a space where I wasn't too sure if I was hearing from God clearly or not. Right. And so that's why I continuously push the narrative of, hey, if we get into a space where we're studying scripture, understanding the Bible, and being around a community that we can raise questions and concerns to, that would be helpful. I mean, even Proverbs tells us that a multitude of counselors, right? There's safety and wisdom involved in that. So I have to be willing to get around those spaces in order to decipher if what I'm feeling is from God or not, because I think we can easily put God on things that aren't God. And then we end up in pits and dangerous cycles that, you know, we tend to continuously fall into. And it takes a lot of humility to admit that what we were trying to say wasn't from God. I took a huge hit to my pride in that space, having to come back and admit, you know what, I don't think that was from God. Like, I don't, just from further clarity and things like that. And so, you know, maybe that was something helpful for you in that area. Hey, listen, if you stuck to the end of this, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. If you want to hear more of these kinds of conversations in this format, please check the description below. There you will find a link to sign up for a Maverick membership. This is where the Truth Project sessions go down every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, where you can be a part of conversations just like the one I shared in this video. Your worldview is welcome, no matter what worldview you come from, and we're all there pursuing one goal: truth. Check the link in the description, sign up, 3 days for free. After that, it's $9.99 a month, but you'll get your money's worth and then some. I'll see you over there, and until next time, be easy and be breezy, my friend.